wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the old freighter he had just repaired. The ship was 40 years old and held together by patches and prayers, but now its engine hummed smoothly again. Another job done. The repair station orbited Earth like a tired metal bird. It was not a fancy place. Ships came here when they could not afford better yards. Had worked here for 12 years and he liked it that way. No drama, no politics, just broken machines that needed fixing. He was walking back to his small quarters when his communicator beeped. It was his best friend and the station's communications officer. "You need to come to the main dock right now," she said. Her voice sounded strange. "Why, another emergency repair?" "No, there are visitors for you, and they are not human." Stopped walking. Aliens rarely came to this station. It was too small and too unimportant. He changed direction and headed for the main dock. When he arrived, he understood why it sounded so strange. 3 tall beings stood in the dock, their blue skin shimmering under the station lights. They wore formal robes covered in gold symbols. Behind them, through the dock window, could see their ship. It was beautiful and expensive, the kind of ship that cost more than this entire station. These were one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy. What were they doing here? The tallest stepped forward. "Are you human engineer, identification number ENG7742 Terra?" Nodded slowly. "That is me. How can I help you?" "I am Advocate, representing the estate of Admiral of the High Fleet. I am here to inform you of your inheritance." Blinked. "My what?" "Your inheritance. Admiral passed from this life 30 standard days ago. His final will names you as his sole heir." Grabbed's arm. He could feel her fingers shaking, or maybe he was the one shaking. "I do not understand," said. "I never met anyone named. There must be a mistake." Advocate's face remained calm. "There is no mistake. Admiral was very specific. He left you the entirety of his estate, including his personal vessel." His personal vessel. The Sovereign's wrath. The dock went completely silent. Even the hum of the station seemed to fade. Hurd gasped beside him. Every being in the galaxy knew that name. The Sovereign's wrath was not just a ship. It was the largest battleship ever built. It had ended 3 galactic wars. Its weapons could crack planets. For 200 years, it had been the symbol of peace through strength. Whoever controlled that ship controlled the balance of power in the galaxy. "That is impossible," whispered. "I have the documentation here," said. He produced a data tablet and handed it to. The Admiral also left a message explaining his choice. "Would you like to hear it?" His hands trembled as he took the tablet. He pressed play. A hologram appeared. An old with blue skin and tired eyes looked at him. Even in death, there was power in that face. This was a being who had commanded fleets and shaped history. The recording said, "You do not remember me, but I remember you. 15 years ago, my personal shuttle suffered engine failure near Earth. I landed at a small repair station. A young human engineer worked through the night to fix my ship. When I offered payment, he refused. He said it was just what you do." His memory stirred. He remembered that night. A damaged shuttle, an alien who seemed important but never gave his name, had fixed the engine because the alien had looked worried and tired. He never thought about it again. "I have watched you since then," continued. "I have seen you help those who cannot pay. I have seen you refuse bribes to cut corners. I have seen you stay small when you could have been great, because greatness would have meant compromising your values. The galaxy does not need another warlord. It needs someone who fixes things. I believe you are that person." The recording ended, stood frozen, the tablet in his hands. "The Galactic Assembly has been informed," said. "As you might expect, the news has caused significant reaction. Several species have filed formal objections. The Confederacy claims the ship as spoils of an ancient war. The Assembly has given you 30 standard days to claim your inheritance. If you do not board the Sovereign's Wrath and demonstrate your ownership before then, the ship will be decommissioned. Decommissioned, spoke up. They would destroy it. They would try. Many would prefer destruction to seeing a human control such power. His voice held no judgment, only facts. The choice is yours. I will return tomorrow for your answer. The left stood in the dock, still holding the tablet. His mind could not process what had just happened. He was a nobody. He fixed broken ships in a forgotten corner of space, and now the most powerful weapon in the galaxy belonged to him. Said softly, "Are you okay?" "No," he admitted. "I'm very far from okay." She led him to the station's small observation deck. Through the window, they could see Earth below, blue and green and peaceful. Humanity's home. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Assembly for 80 years, but they were still considered young and primitive. A minor species. And now a minor species engineer on the galaxy's biggest battleship. "You have to go," said. "I cannot." "You can, you must." She turned him to face her. "I have known you for 10 years. You hide here because you are afraid of wanting more. You tell yourself you are content, but you are just scared. This is your chance to be something greater." "I am not a captain. I am not a warrior. I am just a man who fixes things." "Maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needs." Was silent for a long time. He thought about's words. The old admiral had watched him for 15 years. He had seen something in that could not see in himself. Was it fair to ignore a dying man's wish? Was it right to let fear decide his future? 30 days, he finally said. "I will go. I will look at this ship, but I am not promising anything." Smiled. It was the first time he had seen her smile all day. "That is all I am asking." 3 days later, boarded a transport bound for Prime. The journey took 2 weeks. He spent most of it reading about the Sovereign's Wrath. The more he read, the more terrified he became. The ship had a crew capacity of 50,000. Its main cannon drew power from a contained star. It had been designed to fight gods. When the transport finally dropped out of hyperspace, was standing at the viewport. The pilot announced their arrival but could not hear him. He could not hear anything at all. The Sovereign's Wrath filled the entire view. 40 kilometers of metal and weapons and history. It hung in space like a sleeping giant, surrounded by tiny escort ships that looked like insects beside it. Lights flickered along its hull, thousands of them, like a city floating in the void. Pressed his hand against the cold glass of the viewport. Somewhere in his chest, his heart was beating too fast. His breath came in short gasps. "What did you see in me, old man?" he whispered. The ship did not answer, but soon would have to board it, and then he would have to face whatever waited inside. The transport began its approach. The airlock door opened with a hiss of pressurized air. Stood at the entrance, looking into the ship that was now supposedly his. The corridor beyond was enormous. The ceiling was 5 meters high, designed for beings much larger than humans. Everything was polished metal and soft blue lights. He took one step forward, then another. His footsteps echoed in the empty space. A voice spoke from everywhere at once. "Welcome aboard, Captain. I am Vessel, the ship's artificial intelligence. I have been waiting for you." "Stopped walking. You knew I was coming." "Admiral instructed me to prepare for your arrival. The ship has been maintained in his absence, but it requires a captain to function at full capacity. That is now you." Captain, the word hit like a physical blow. He was not a captain. He was an engineer who fixed old freighters. He had no business standing in this place. "I will guide you to the command deck," Vessel said. "Please follow the illuminated path." Lights appeared on the floor leading deeper into the ship. Followed them. As he walked, he passed through sections that seemed bigger than his entire repair station. Storage bays, crew quarters, medical wings, all empty, all waiting. The command deck was at the heart of the ship. When stepped inside, he lost his breath. The room was circular, with a domed ceiling covered in screens showing stars and data. In the center stood a raised platform with a single chair, the captain's chair. Around it, dozens of stations waited for crew members who were not there. Holographic displays flickered to life as he entered, showing system readouts and status reports. Tried to take another step. His legs would not move. He tried to breathe. His chest was too tight. The room started to spin. His vision grew dark at the edges. He could hear his own heartbeat, loud and fast and wrong. "Captain," Vessel said, "your biometrics indicate extreme stress. You are experiencing what humans call a panic attack. Shall I summon medical assistance?" Could not answer. He stumbled backward, away from the captain's chair, away from the screens and the lights and the weight of it all. He found a side corridor and half ran, half fell into it. The corridor led to a maintenance section, small and cramped and dark. He sat down on the metal floor. He put his head in his hands. He focused on breathing. In and out, in and out. What was he doing here? He was a fool. He was a coward. Admiral had made a terrible mistake. He stayed in that maintenance corridor for hours. The ship's lights dimmed around him, matching some internal day cycle. He did not move. He did not eat. He just sat there trying to understand how his simple life had become so impossibly complicated. Finally, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Looked up. A woman stood at the entrance. She was human, maybe in her mid-40s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She wore a diplomatic uniform with Earth's flag on the shoulder. She asked, "Yes, I am Bay. The Assembly assigned me to help you navigate this situation." She looked around the maintenance corridor and raised an eyebrow. "This is an interesting choice of location for the Galaxy's ship captain." "I am not a captain. The ship's registration says otherwise." She walked closer and crouched down to his level. "I heard you froze on the command deck." Looked away. "I am not built for this. I fix things, small things. I do not command warships." Studied him for a long moment. "Do you know why the Admiral chose you?" He left a message. He said the Galaxy needs someone who fixes things, not another warlord. Do you believe that? I do not know what I believe. I just know that I cannot do this. I cannot command 50,000 crew members. I cannot make decisions that affect the entire galaxy. I am just a man from a repair station. Nodded slowly. You are right. You cannot do those things. Not today. But the Admiral did not expect you to become someone else. He expected you to become more of who you already are. Frowned. What does that mean? It means you should stop trying to be a captain. Start being an engineer. She stood up and offered him her hand. Come, there is someone you need to meet. Hesitated, then took her hand. She pulled him to his feet with surprising strength. They walked through the ship's corridors until they reached what looked like an officer's quarters. Inside, A was waiting. He was younger than had been, with lighter blue skin and military insignia on his uniform. This is Lieutenant, said. He served under Admiral for 30 years. Looked at with obvious doubt. So you are the human the Admiral chose. I confess, I do not understand his reasoning. That makes two of us, said. His expression shifted slightly. Was that almost a smile? At least you are honest. The Admiral valued honesty. Lieutenant has agreed to serve on this ship under your command, explained. He knows the vessel better than anyone alive. If you will have me, added. I made a promise to the Admiral. I intend to keep it. Looked at the officer. Here was someone who had actually known, someone who had served on this ship when it mattered. Why would he want to follow a human engineer who could not even walk onto the command deck without collapsing? You doubt yourself, said, reading his expression. That is not necessarily a weakness. The Admiral once told me that the most dangerous leaders are those who never doubt. They are the ones who lead their people into disaster. The lieutenant is right, said. Your hesitation is not a flaw. It shows you understand the weight of this responsibility. Before could respond, Vessel's voice interrupted. Captain, there is a message from the Galactic Assembly. The Confederacy has filed a formal challenge to your inheritance. Their ambassador, High Lord, demands a hearing. Felt his stomach drop. What kind of challenge? They claim the sovereign's wrath rightfully belongs to the Confederacy as spoils of war from a conflict 800 years ago. If you cannot demonstrate worthiness of command within 20 days, the Assembly may rule in their favor. 20 days, could not even walk onto the command deck. How was he supposed to demonstrate worthiness? His face was serious. They have wanted this ship for centuries. They will use every trick to take it from you. Then let them have it, said. I did not ask for this. Stepped forward. If they gain control of the sovereign's wrath, the balance of power in the galaxy will shift. They are not like they do not seek peace. They seek dominance. Millions could die. The weight of those words pressed down on. This was not just about him anymore. It had never been just about him. He thought about what it said. Stop trying to be a captain. Start being an engineer. I cannot command this ship, said slowly. Not yet, maybe not ever, but I can learn it, I can understand it. He looked at. You said you know this vessel better than anyone. Will you teach me? Studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. The Admiral saw something in you. Perhaps I will see it too. Smiled. That is a start. Now shall we get you off this maintenance deck? They walked back toward the main sections of the ship. As they passed through corridor after corridor, forced himself to really look at the vessel around him. The walls, the systems, the machinery. This was a machine. The biggest machine he had ever seen, but still a machine. And understood machines. He had no plan, he had no confidence, but he had a place to start. Somewhere in the depths of the sovereign's wrath, something that had been cold and dormant began to warm. The ship was waking up, and for better or worse, it was waking up for him. Spent the next 3 days crawling through the ship's maintenance tunnels. He examined power conduits. He tested life support systems. He traced the paths of coolant lines that ran for kilometers through the hull, and he found problems. Not the kind of problems that would make the ship explode. These were smaller things. A relay that was working at 80% efficiency. A sensor array that needed calibration. A door mechanism that stuck for half a second before opening. The Sovereign's wrath had been built for war, but for the last 15 years, since his retirement, it had sat in orbit doing nothing. The maintenance crews had kept it running, but they had not kept it perfect. Nobody had expected the ship to fly again. Started fixing things. He began with the small stuff. A flickering light panel in the officers' quarters, a jammed storage locker, a ventilation fan that made an annoying clicking sound. Each repair was tiny, almost meaningless on a ship this size, but with each fix learned a little more about how the vessel worked. Lieutenant found him on the 4th day, deep inside an access tunnel, replacing a worn power coupling. The command deck requires your attention, said. There are matters that need a captain's decision. Did not look up from his work. What kind of matters? Supply requisitions, crew assignments, communication protocols with the assembly. You know more about those things than I do. Handle them. Was silent for a moment. That is not how command works. Then change how it works. Finally looked at the. I told you, I am not a captain. I am an engineer. If I try to make decisions about things I do not understand, I will make mistakes. If you make those decisions, they will be correct, which is better for the ship. Seemed to consider this. The Admiral also delegated authority to those he trusted. Perhaps you are more like him than I thought. I doubt that. Doubt is acceptable, failure to act is not. Paused. There is also another matter. A ship has arrived from Earth. Someone wishes to see you. Frowned. He had not told anyone on Earth where he was going, except. He climbed out of the access tunnel and followed to the docking bay. A small transport had landed inside. Standing beside it, looking around with wide eyes, was, "What are you doing here?" She turned and smiled at him. It was the smile she used when she had done something she knew he would argue about. "I quit my job," she said. "You what?" "The station was boring without you, and I figured you would need help." She looked around at the massive docking bay. "This place is incredible and terrifying, mostly terrifying. You cannot just leave your life to follow me on this crazy journey." "Yes, I can. I already did." She walked up to him. "You have been my best friend for 10 years. You think I would let you face this alone? Besides, you need someone who speaks more than 3 languages. Your alien diplomacy is terrible." Despite everything, felt something warm in his chest. He was not alone anymore. "You are impossible." "I know. Now show me around this ship. I want to see the weapon systems." "The weapons are locked." Her smile faded. "Locked." Vessel's voice came from the speakers above. "The ship's primary weapon systems are secured behind Admiral's personal encryption. Only the ship's rightful captain can unlock them, but the system requires a demonstration of character before access is granted." "A demonstration of character," repeated. "What does that mean?" "I do not have complete information. The Admiral left a message that will explain further, but it cannot be accessed until the demonstration is complete." Thought about this. Had not just left him a ship, he had left him a puzzle, a test. The old Admiral wanted to see what kind of person was before giving him access to weapons that could destroy worlds. "Then we figure out the test," said. "But first we fix this ship." Over the next week, worked harder than he had ever worked in his life. Helped where she could, learning the communication systems and making connections with the small crew that had been assigned to maintain the ship. Lieutenant watched everything with his careful eyes, offering advice when asked. And the ship began to change. It was subtle at first. Systems that had been sluggish became smooth. Response times improved. The lights seemed brighter, the air cleaner. It was as if the Sovereign's wrath was waking up from a long sleep. On the 10th day, they received a visitor. High Lord of the Confederacy arrived with a delegation of 6 guards. He was tall for his species, with red-scaled skin and golden eyes that held nothing but contempt. He had requested a tour of the ship under diplomatic immunity. Refusing would have looked like weakness. Met him at the main airlock. Stood beside him, her face carefully neutral, hung back, his hand resting near his sidearm. "So this is the human who thinks he deserves the greatest weapon in the galaxy," said. His voice was like gravel scraping against metal. "You are smaller than I expected." "Size is not everything," replied. Laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. A human proverb, no doubt. Your species is full of such sayings. You use words because you lack real power. "You requested a tour," interrupted smoothly. "Shall we begin?" They walked through the ship, made comments about everything he saw, always finding something to criticize. The corridors were too wide. The lighting was inefficient. The design was outdated. Said nothing, he just watched. When they reached the engine room, something shifted. Looked at the massive power cores with obvious hunger in his eyes. This was what he wanted. Not just the weapons, but the technology. The fleet had nothing that could match this. "Tell me," said, "how much do you truly understand about this vessel? You are an engineer, yes, from some forgotten station above Earth." "I understand enough." "Do you? Then explain to me the function of the secondary plasma distributor on Deck 47. Answered immediately. "It regulates power flow to the dorsal shield emitters during combat. The original design had a flaw that caused power spikes under sustained fire. Admiral had it modified in year 2298 to include a buffer system." His golden eyes narrowed. "And the purpose of the redundant cooling system in the starboard section?" "It was added after the ship took damage during the conflict. The primary cooling system remained operational, But the Admiral did not want to risk a future failure. The redundant system has never been activated. Until 3 days ago, Vessel added. Captain discovered an efficiency improvement and activated the redundant system to assist the primary. Overall cooling efficiency has increased by 12%. Stared at, the contempt in his eyes had been replaced by something else. Uncertainty, perhaps, or maybe the first hint of concern. You have studied this ship. I have worked on this ship. There is a difference. The tour continued, but the tone had changed, asked fewer questions. He seemed less confident with each passing minute. When they finally returned to the airlock, he barely said goodbye before leaving. Let out a long breath. That was well done. He underestimated me, said. He thought I was just some primitive human who got lucky. He did not expect me to actually know anything. And now he knows you are more than he assumed. That is both good and dangerous. Looked at him with new respect. You are learning fast. That night, alone in the captain's quarters that he still did not feel comfortable using, asked Vessel a question. What did the Admiral want me to demonstrate? For the weapon's encryption. The Admiral believed that power should be wielded by those who do not desire it. Your hesitation when you first boarded was not weakness, Captain. It was the first test. I passed a test by freezing in fear. You passed a test by recognizing that this responsibility is too important to take lightly. Many would have walked onto the command deck with confidence they did not deserve. You showed humility. A holographic display flickered to life. Admiral's face appeared, older and more tired than in the first message. If you are seeing this, the recording said, you have begun to understand. The galaxy does not need another warlord. It needs a repairman, someone who looks at broken things and wants to fix them. The weapons are now yours to command. Use them only when there is no other choice. The weapon systems came online, felt the ship hum with new power. But more importantly, he felt something else. He felt ready. Not ready to fight, ready to fix whatever came next. The message from Admiral explained more than just the weapons. It explained the galaxy. Sat in the captain's quarters, watching the recording play for the third time. The old, holographic face was serious and sad. The galaxy is heading toward war, said. I have seen the signs for decades. The major powers are building fleets in secret. Trade disputes are becoming territorial conflicts. The peace I helped create is failing. The Admiral paused. The sovereign's wrath is the only force powerful enough to maintain balance, but it must be wielded by someone who would never use it for conquest. That is why I chose you. The recording ended, stared at the empty space where the hologram had been. His voice came from the doorway. Now you understand the stakes. The Admiral wanted me to stop a war. He wanted you to prevent one. There is a difference. She entered the room and sat across from him. I have been in diplomatic service for 20 years. I have seen what happens when powers lose faith in each other. It starts with small things, trade restrictions, military exercises near borders, angry words in the assembly. Then it becomes something much worse. And they are pushing for this. They are one piece of a larger puzzle, but they are the most aggressive piece. His face grew dark. My contacts in the assembly just sent me troubling news. The Confederacy has been caught smuggling weapons to 3 different species. They are trying to start conflicts that they can profit from. Felt anger rise in his chest. They are creating wars. Creating them, funding them, making them worse. She leaned forward. I have the evidence. If we present it to the assembly, they will be humiliated. Their challenge to your inheritance will lose support. Then let us present it. The next day stood before the Galactic Assembly for the first time. The chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Some were humanoid, others were very much not. All of them were watching him. Did most of the talking. She presented the evidence of weapons smuggling with cold precision, data files, communication intercepts, testimony from merchants who had been forced to transport illegal cargo. The proof was overwhelming. High Lord stood in his designated area, his red scales darkening with rage. When finished, he stepped forward. "This is manipulation," he hissed. "Lies created by humans to protect their stolen ship." "The evidence comes from multiple independent sources," replied calmly. "None of them connected to Earth or to Captain. The Confederacy rejects these accusations, and we invoke ancient right." His golden eyes fixed on, "Single combat between champions. Winner takes the ship." The chamber erupted in noise. Multiple species shouted objections. Others seemed interested. Ancient rights held power in the assembly. They were rarely invoked, but they could not be ignored. The assembly's chairman, an elderly member of a species did not recognize, raised a hand for silence. "The right of champions has been invoked. Captain, do you accept the challenge?" Felt every eye in the chamber turn to him. He could feel fear beside him. He could sense tension from across the room where the lieutenant had been watching. If he refused, he would look weak. The assembly might still rule in his favor, but doubt would remain. They would keep pushing, keep scheming. If he accepted, he would die. Champions were genetically engineered warriors, bred for combat over thousands of years. No human could defeat one. "I need time to consider," said. "You have until tomorrow," the chairman replied. Back on the Sovereign's Wrath gathered his small group. "Lieutenant," they sat in the conference room that had once hosted admirals and generals, now occupied by 4 worried people trying to solve an impossible problem. "You cannot fight him," said immediately. "The champion will kill you." "I know." "Then refuse. The evidence against them is strong. The assembly will support you." "Maybe, maybe not. They have been building alliances for years. Some species will vote with them out of fear or self-interest." Shook his head. "This challenge was not desperation. Plan this. He knew we would expose the smuggling. He had this ready as a backup." Spoke quietly. "I could fight in your place. The right allows for champions." No, his voice was firm. "You have served enough, Lieutenant. You served the Admiral your whole life. This is my responsibility." "Then you will die." "Maybe not." Stood and walked to the room's display screen. "Vessel, show me everything in the archives about combat traditions." The screen filled with data, began reading. Hours passed. The others tried to help, but there was too much information. Finally, near midnight, found what he was looking for. "The Right of Broken Swords," he read aloud. "An ancient tradition, older than the Confederacy itself. It allows a challenged party to demand the conflict be resolved through restoration rather than destruction." Looked up. "I have never heard of this." "It has not been used in 800 years, but it is still valid, still part of their law." Felt something like hope. "Both parties must name something broken between their peoples. The one who repairs it first wins." "That is insane," said. "How do you repair something between species? And what would you even name?" "I do not know yet, but I know this. I cannot beat a warrior in combat, but I might be able to out-repair one." Studied the display with new interest. "This is clever. The honor tradition above almost everything. If you invoke a valid right, they cannot refuse without losing face." "It is a huge risk," said. "What if you cannot repair whatever you name? What if they name something impossible?" "Then I lose, but I would have lost anyway." Turned to face his friends. "This is who I am. I fix things. If I am going to win or lose, I want to do it my way." The next morning, returned to the assembly chamber. High Lord was waiting, standing beside the largest that had ever seen. This had to be the champion. He was called. His muscles were massive. His claws looked sharp enough to cut through metal. His eyes held no emotion at all. "Have you made your decision, human?" asked. "Will you accept the challenge?" Walked to the center of the chamber. He did not look at, he looked at. "I accept the challenge," he said. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. but I invoke the right of broken swords." The chamber went completely silent. His expression changed from triumph to shock. He clearly had not expected this. "The right of broken swords," continued, his voice clear and steady, "demands that this conflict be resolved through restoration rather than destruction. Both parties must name something broken between our peoples. The one who repairs it first wins." Turned to look at, confusion on his massive face. He had been bred to fight, not to debate ancient traditions. Recovered quickly, his golden eyes narrowed with hatred. "You think you are clever, human. Very well, we accept your invocation, but you will find that some things cannot be repaired." The chairman stepped forward. "The right of broken swords has been invoked and accepted. Champion, name the broken thing." His voice was deep as thunder. "Human arrogance. They think they belong among the stars. I will repair their broken understanding of their own weakness." "Captain, name the broken thing." Took a deep breath. He had thought about this all night. He had only one chance. "Isolation. Your people were once teachers to younger species. You lifted others up. Now you only conquer. I will repair what you have forgotten." Laughed. "Repair our history. Impossible. You have doomed yourself, human." "Perhaps, Sid, but I have 24 hours to try." The clock started, walked out of the chamber without looking back. He had one day to remind an entire civilization of who they used to be. Did not sleep that night. He sat in the Sovereign's Wrath archive room, surrounded by holographic displays, searching through centuries of records. Admiral had been a collector. Throughout his long life, he had gathered historical data from every species he encountered: trade records, cultural documents, personal memories. The archive contained more information than most planetary libraries. Somewhere in this collection, believed, was the key to winning the right of broken swords. "Vessel, search all records. Show me anything from before the Confederacy was founded." Searching. The archive contains limited pre-Confederacy materials. Most historical records were destroyed during their unification wars. "Show me what we have." Holographic files appeared in the air. There were fragments of old texts, partial images, scattered references in other species' documents. They had worked hard to erase their early history. But they had not erased everything. Found a recording dated over 2,000 years ago. The image quality was poor, the audio crackling with age, but it showed something remarkable. A was teaching, not fighting, not conquering, teaching. The alien in the recording was speaking to a group of young beings from at least 4 different species. Its voice was gentle, patient, nothing like the harsh sounds had heard from modern. It was explaining something about mathematics, using simple examples that even children could understand. "This is who they were," whispered, "before the wars, before the Confederacy." He searched for more. Hours passed, brought him food that he barely touched, offered help that he gratefully accepted. Together they dug through the archive, finding more and more pieces of a forgotten past. They found recordings of healers treating wounded aliens during an ancient plague. They found documents describing scholars who traveled the galaxy to share knowledge freely. They found artwork created by artists that celebrated beauty instead of violence. And they found a speech. It was given by a leader named Prelate over 2,000 years ago. The recording was almost complete, one of the best preserved files in the entire archive. "We are the," said in the recording. "We were given strength so that we might protect the weak. We were given intelligence so that we might teach the curious. We were given long lives so that we might guide younger species toward wisdom. This is our purpose. This is our honor." Stared at the hologram of the ancient leader. This was so different from everything the modern believed. They had completely forgotten who they used to be. Or had they been forced to forget? More searching revealed the answer. After the unification wars, the new military government had destroyed most historical records. They had rewritten history to emphasize conquest and strength. Generations grew up never knowing that their ancestors had been teachers and healers. The sun rose over Prime, had been awake for over 20 hours. He had 6 hours left before the rite concluded. "I know what to do," he said. "Vessel, can you broadcast a message to every screen in the assembly chamber?" "Yes, Captain. However, doing so without authorization would violate several protocols. I am the captain of the galaxy's most powerful ship. That should be authorization enough." "A reasonable interpretation of the regulations. What would you like to broadcast?" Gathered all the recordings they had found, the teaching, the healers, the scholars, the artists, and Prelate's speech. He walked into the assembly chamber 6 hours later. Every seat was filled. The delegation stood in their designated area, High Lord in front beside him. They looked confident, certain of victory. How could a human repair isolation? It was impossible. The chairman called the chamber to order. "The 24 hours have ended. Champion, present your repair of human arrogance." Stepped forward, he held up a data tablet. "I have prepared a document. It lists every human failure in the past century, every mistake, every weakness. When the humans read this, they will understand that they are not worthy of standing among us." Murmurs from the assembly. It was not a creative solution, but it was something. A list of failures could humble a species. It might qualify as repair under the rite's ancient rules. "Captain," the chairman said, "present your repair of isolation." Walked to the center of the chamber. He carried nothing. His hands were empty. Smirked. "You have nothing. The human admits defeat." "I have something, but it is not for you, High Lord. It is for your people." Nodded to the ceiling. "Vessel, begin broadcast." Every screen in the chamber lit up. The old recording of the teaching appeared. The gentle voice filled the room, explaining mathematics to eager young students from different species. The delegation went still. More recordings played, healers treating the sick, scholars sharing knowledge, artists creating beauty, and finally Prelate's speech about purpose and honor. "We were given strength so that we might protect the weak. We were given intelligence so that we might teach the curious." The chamber was completely silent. Watched the faces. Many of them had never seen these images before. They were looking at their own ancestors and not recognizing them. High Lord's scales had gone pale. His golden eyes were wide with shock. But it was who broke first. The massive champion stared at the screen showing Prelate, his face twisted with emotions that could not fully read: confusion, grief, and something that might have been shame. "This is our history," asked. His voice was quiet. "This is who we were." "This is who you could be again," said. "You are not broken because you became conquerors. You are broken because you forgot why you were strong in the first place." Looked at, then he looked at the other in the chamber. Finally, he looked at. "The human has named our brokenness," said slowly, "and shown us that we can be repaired." He set down his weapon. The chamber erupted, were shouting at each other. Some were angry, some were crying. One elderly had fallen to her knees, tears streaming down her scaled face. Tried to regain control. "This changes nothing. These are old recordings, probably fake." "They are real," another spoke up. He was old, with faded scales and tired eyes. "I have heard whispers of these teachings my whole life. I thought they were myths, but they are true." More stepped forward, demanding to see more of the recordings. The political delegation was losing control of its own people. The chairman raised his hand. "The right of broken swords has been decided. Captain has demonstrated repair. The challenge is withdrawn. The sovereign's wrath belongs to its rightful captain." Looked like he wanted to protest, but he had nothing left to say. His challenge had failed. His weapons smuggling was exposed, and his own people were questioning everything they had been taught. After the session ended, approached. The massive warrior moved slowly, as if carrying a heavy weight. "Human," he said, "you did not defeat me in battle. You defeated something much older. I do not know if I should thank you or hate you. You do not have to decide today." Nodded slowly. "The recordings you showed, are there more?" "Many more. Admiral collected them over his lifetime. They are yours if you want them." "I want them." Paused. "Perhaps they have been broken for too long. Perhaps it is time to try a different path." Weeks later stood on the command deck of the Sovereign's Wrath. The captain's chair no longer frightened him. The massive screens no longer overwhelmed him. He had learned to see the ship as what it was, a tool. A very large, very powerful tool. Sat at the communications station, chatting with contacts across a dozen systems. Lieutenant managed the tactical displays, his doubts about humans long since faded. Advised from the diplomatic station, already planning their next move. They had formally requested help rebuilding their cultural archives. It would take years, maybe decades, but it was a start. Captain Vessel said, "Where shall we go?" Looked at the star map, thousands of worlds, countless species, so many things that needed fixing. "Wherever we are needed," he said, "let us get to work." The Sovereign's Wrath turned toward the stars. The galaxy's most powerful weapon was now in the hands of a repairman. And for the first time in centuries, that was exactly what it needed.